Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Lunch and Learn hosted by the Field Center for Entrepreneurship at Brigg College. Thanks so much for joining us. As you know, the Center for Entrepreneurship is a multifaceted division offering a variety of services and programs for current and aspiring entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial thinking community like yourselves. Today's session is identifying a gap in a billion-dollar industry. And we have the CEO and founder of Journ Beauty joining us today, Sara Shah. And today's session is going to be a little different than our usual lunch and learns. We're going to have a chat with Sara about her journey, about what it takes to infiltrate a billion-dollar industry. And any questions you have for Sara, we will take them as we go along, and we'll have this chat with her and learn a little bit more about, an in-depth industry. Sara, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to just give a little bit of background on you, and then you can definitely fill in the gaps too. So Sara was a busy lawyer turned entrepreneur, not necessarily out of passion for entrepreneurship, but out of need. Sara found that her skincare needs were not being addressed by the industry for her and other women of color, and she searched for getting the right answers and products out. Experiencing underlying skin issues and not having those needs addressed. And that started your entrepreneurship journey, hence the name of your beauty company, Journ. Thank you so much for being with us. Please feel free to tell us more about you and your journey, and we'll chit chat and take questions from our audience and learn a little bit more.
Great, Marlene. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here today. So Journ was actually born through, as you mentioned, my journey with cystic acne. So in my previous life, I was an attorney in New York City. As someone who was always in and out of client meetings, and someone with cystic acne, I didn't feel comfortable walking into these meetings or in court without any makeup. And then whatever cosmetic products and skincare products that I was using, first of all, was super extensive process of these multiple products. After all this effort, time, and money that I was putting into my regimen, I still couldn't look natural and flawless. Like, I simply wanted to look like I had good skin. So having been a makeup junkie, and a makeup artist many years prior, I turned to the industry for answers, and really wanted to find products that would do two things. One is that they would simplify my routine. So they would, consolidate this world of like makeup and skincare into maybe one or few products. And two, they would just make me look natural. And so in my journey for looking for these products, couldn't find anything. And really found this, came to this realization that though brands, in most recent years, and I'm sure you've heard of Fenty Beauty and others, have really been focusing on the shade issue, and really helping bridge that gap by creating all these inclusive shades. But no one was really focusing on the underlying skin tones of medium to deeper skin tones. Looking at issues like dark circles, hyperpigmentation, acne, scarring, issues that, may impact all, but are most predominant in people of color. And so I was having dinner with Mir, my husband / co-founder, one day, and I expressed this frustration to him. Like, at this point, I'm still practicing law. I said, look, I have this need and I can't find anything for myself. And so he simply said, well, let's create it. And, it was like, it took me a moment. I was like, whoa, wait a second, we can go and make these products. And it was a little bit easier for him to say that because he's been sort of like the ops lead or one of the first ops hires, a variety of different startups in New York City. He was at Quip, Walker & Co. brands, their brand that live in Sephora and other places. We embarked on our journey together with my passion or need for this product and his background and experience. And that was sort of like the beginnings of Journ.
So you were already a successful lawyer. Mm-hmm. How did that feel about transitioning from being in a successful career and now a new road of entrepreneurship? I know that you have your husband that knew this road, but this is new for you. Tell me how that felt.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So so this whole thing happened around the same time where I was feeling really unfulfilled in my career as a lawyer. So I'm about 7 years in at this point, as a practicing attorney, and I had tried a variety of different things, and nothing was sort of, fulfilling my soul. And as someone who believes in, I want to be 100% passionate and love what I do every day. And yeah, there's going to be parts of the job that you're not going to like as much, or as more, dry or boring, but, I just didn't feel that I was being fulfilled. And so, it was, and at this point I had my own law practice. So I was actually helping small businesses and startups. And so for me, I felt like, I had invested so much of my time, money, health, giving up birthday parties and weddings just to go through law school and go through, maybe important meetings where I couldn't. So I felt like I had invested so much up until that point that I just, could I transition to something else? Right. And so that transition was a very difficult, it was difficult. Like it was hard. It was hard to sort of let go of something that it has a huge investment and try something new that really I loved and was a need. And I would love to do this and create, solve a problem. So from just like it was a personal battle, and it took time where I almost held on to like my own practice for much longer than I should have, almost, just for the sake of holding on to it. But I remember where, Mir sat me down one day and he's like, listen, like, let it go. Like, you don't love what you're doing here with your practice, let it go. And I remember saying, like, I've invested so much time and money and all of this to get here. And he said, well, yeah, you've invested 7 years, but what about the next 7 and the 7 after that and the 7 so you have to think about like, what is it that you want to do going forward, and forget what you've done. And you've learned a lot. You use it every day. Like, I did all the legal stuff for a firm, and then like just negotiating contracts and just the other non-legal, things that I had learned, like logical thinking or, negotiating, whatever. He's like, you'll use those, but you'll repurpose them to a different way. And it was great for me to sort of just have that moment to say, yes, it's time to let it go. And then it's also this, there's other expectations, like how do you explain to your parents, like who migrated from the Middle East, because we lived in Dubai, and they were originally from Pakistan, and they left behind their families and their lives and good jobs. For us, my brother, to have this opportunity to have these amazing careers like lawyer and whatever. So just even explaining to them this concept of entrepreneur, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to leave behind something like this. So there's a lot, there was a lot happening, and different, like multidimensional, and there was like a personal battle, and then things that you have to address with like my parents, who don't understand maybe as well this concept of being an entrepreneur and taking on all this risk. But yeah, I think that I have been able to step back and sort of like prioritize like what I want to do and what makes me happy at the end of the day really help. And obviously, having a logical plan and a way to execute on that, I think really did help put things in perspective and make that transition smoother, which I won't say it was, it took time, but smoother, I would say.
As a woman of color, as first generation, I definitely understand the perspective of how do your parents feel about going off of their track, not following the road they expect. So that is a very heartfelt response. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
On the same note, when you think back, joining the beauty industry must not have been an easy journey, considering it is highly competitive in brand and products. Were there any parts of the process which ended up being much easier than you expected, and any parts which you thought would be pretty easy to navigate, but they ended up being really much harder?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think for me, what came easy, so I never set out to create a brand. Like it was never like, I'm going to start a beauty company. Like for me, it was like, I'm always solving a problem, right? I had a problem. I didn't see that it exists. And being the lawyer that I was, and, core to my bones, I had to do a lot of research to sort of like make sure that this was a problem that was bigger than just me, right? And there's other people that felt the same way. So what came easy was this idea, because for me, it was like the product was it was a hard product to create because, and we'll talk, I'd love to share a little bit more about the products that we currently have and what's on our roadmap. But, the idea was that I wanted to take skincare, an entire skincare product and a makeup product and fuse it together. So, and just to step away from the question and just provide a little context, a lot of like a learning that I guess realized while going through this process is that a lot of products may say that, they contain argan oil or, they're an argan-based product, but they could have like a 0.0001% of like a skincare benefit. And actually in the industry, it is very common to add ingredients or sprinkle them in at marketing levels where you can claim that they do something, but they may not have enough of a concentration to actually be effective. So for me, the idea was that I wanted the product to contain ingredients that have been clinically tested to show results. So if I'm saying that our product helps with dark circles or hyperpigmentation, that the ingredients have had clinical data or have been tested to show that, yes, over time, it's actually going to impact it. Now, when you do that, you're taking a skincare system and now you want like a high performance or like an effective skincare system, and you're coupling that with a high performance product and keeping in mind that it was made for people of color. So the pigments and making sure that only a tiny amount is needed. So it's pigmented enough, and marrying all those words was a hard process. But what came easy was like, this is the solution. Like, this is what I need. And for me, like that was very clear of what I wanted the products to be, which goes back to sort of like the problem solving, right? I guess, but what came harder or what was more challenging is that, like you said, it's a huge industry. There's not only big players like your L'Oreal's and Estee Lauders, but now you have all these influencers that are, you've got the Kylies, you've got all these people that are influencers or influential people or celebrities that are also launching products. And now you are a tiny fish in the sea. I'm not an influencer. I have, like very few followers, like family and friends. And it's like, how do I tell the world about Journ, and that once people learn about it and try it, they and especially if they've have those skin concerns, they see value in the product. But what came hard is, how do you build that community? How do you put Journ on the roadmap in a big pond, which, I don't think anything like this exists, like the product that we have, but it's like, how do you get that in front of people, being that we are small, bootstrapped, we were self-funded for a very long time. We're just bootstrapped and family and friends raised. So how do you, without those resources of, these large players, how do you get out there and put your brand out there?
That's really good segue, because I'm a customer of Journ, and I found you through an influencer who demonstrated one of your products, which is the product I use myself.
Love it.
And the reason why I related was because she was the same skin tone as me.
Yeah.
She had the same sort of hyperpigmentation problems that I had. And I'm like, oh, okay, I have to try this. It worked. And so I guess this is, the question is, what's the impact influencers and partnerships and collaborations have on your branding and your sales in the future of the products you develop, and what Journ will continue to evolve into?
Great. Yeah, I would answer that question in two ways. So the first thing is growing, the influencers, right? Let's just talk about influencers. So for me, growing up, I never saw, women like me that look like me, in ads and in the media, right? So for me, it was really important to represent women, of all colors, of, and just all types of women, right? Like women of color, especially. And so for me, when I started working on Journ, I was like, I want my daughter to grow up, and I have a 2.5-year-old. I want her to grow up being represented and seeing herself in the women that, even if whatever I'm putting out in the world, right, with Journ. So that was a really important thing for me. And so, when we work with influencers, we make sure that they're real women with real skin concerns. We work with like women of color and like all kinds of skin tones, but it is really important for me to have women of color be represented through the brand, and the real issues being represented as well. Like, we all don't, and especially in this world right now, there's Instagram filters that completely, in motion, change your skin and make it look better. Like it's, I wanted to it to be like real, right? I wanted you, like when you saw the ad, you saw yourself represented in this woman. So that was the first part of the process, where I just wanted to work with influencers that, you know, were real women with real skin concerns and real issues, like me and you, right? Still have, like, I've got a lot of acne, and you know, I have acne scarring. So I wanted women that have those issues, and to show that, you know, this is how you use the products. Working with influencers it's actually one of our biggest channels to generate revenue. And the reason I would say is because I think predominantly, like when we have people use the products, like it is, people will just send us like emails like randomly, and they'll say, hey, I saw this ad and I felt like I was represented through this ad, or I felt like you created a product just for me. And it's amazing to see that. So you know, yeah, so coming back to your question, in working with influencers and us being able to really select, you know, the type of people we work with, to really coming back to like, this is what Journ stands for. This is what, you know, these are the women or men that represent Journ. So yeah, working with influencers has been very successful for us. And I think and it's because it's real and raw, right? It's like, you know, women with like real issues, real concerns, and they're showing how they incorporate the product in a simple way, right? Like, I mean, even most of us are busy. We don't have time to do like the 10-step regimen with skincare and makeup and baking and all of that. So really, like, you know, for us, like the core is like, we want every woman, every shade to be represented in our ads. We want them to you know, be real and raw, and show their real skin concerns, and show how Journ simplifies the routine. So I think like having those three principles that are very important to us in Journ be represented through our content, that the influencers cascade to the world, has proven very successful for us.
What are the important facets that any of our entrepreneurs should take away with how they should work with influencers? What would be the requirements that they would need from an influencer, so that way customers are educated about your products?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess for me, the most important thing, you know, like everything that comes down to like, what's our mission? What do we stand for? What are we solving, right? Like, what problem are we solving? So when it's almost like a mental checklist we go through, okay, like, you know, is this influencer, have skin concerns? Is this influencer, you know, and are they, does this align with like even their own ethos, right? So like anytime I get on a call, and I do a lot of like the influencer partnerships calls myself, just because it is so important for me to also have that, you know, marriage between the influencer and whether their values align with Journ's, right? So for me, the first question is like, okay, I want you, like, we'll send them the product, and it's like, I want you to try it for like 2 weeks, whatever time you reasonably try a product. And I do suggest like a longer, not just a day, because it is skincare in it, and so take some time. And if you don't like it, I don't want you to, you know, I don't want you to like cascade this dishonest information, or just like, even if you just sort of think it's okay, like I want you to be passionate about the product. I want you to feel like it's making an impact in your life or changing your routine, right? So that's always like, first we have a call, I send them the product, I'm like, try it, tell me when you're ready, and then let's talk about it. They come back, you know, and they're like, oh my God, this is what I was looking for, I love it. It's like, okay, that's like my cue to say, okay, now we can talk about the partnership. So I think for me, like if I just sort of break it down into the steps, it's like, okay, does this influencer's values align with yours, right? Two, how do they feel about the product, and does it feel like it simplifies their routine? Because then they become the champion for your brand and an ambassador for your brand. And I do think that, you know, in this world where everything is like paid ads and all of that, like I think we're starting to see through what is truly, you know, I think we can, like, looking at contests, like, okay, you're truly passionate about this product versus, okay, you're just doing this because you're being paid for it, right? So like, those are some things that we take into consideration. And I know, like, certainly, because we are vegan and cruelty free and gluten free, and, you know, we're very clean brand. So it's like, those are also values we look for in the influencers, just to ensure that they're, that also aligns with their values for what they cascade to their audience.
You know, that's exactly what I felt when I met Simona through her.
Yeah.
her ads and her
Yes.
page. And I felt the passion, and I felt it as if
Yeah.
it was me. And so
Yeah.
how do you find these influencers? How do you know that, I mean, there's so many of them out there. So
Yeah.
how do you know who would be the right partner for you before you even, how do you start that process? Because I wouldn't even know where to start to choose someone to even research their values and whether they match, because that would be before they even know you're interested in them, you're doing the research. So what's the sort of,
Yes.
should you be doing as an entrepreneur to say, I want to embark on on an influencer partnership? Where do you start?
Man. So, I mean, I was, small team. I do most of our social media to this day. And I think it's a control thing just because I'm so married to like the message. And I know it's like sometimes like being a founder, you have to learn to sort of let things go and delegate things. But this is one thing that I sort of have held on to. And so the way I started when we first launched the brand, and I were like, okay, I literally opened up an Excel spreadsheet and it's got nothing on it because it's like, I'm just starting. And it was just a matter of like scrolling. So I went through, because follow influencers and I love beauty. So I knew like, I loved following these influencers, and I wanted to, I would love to work with them. And at that point, some of them were like way bigger than we could even afford to pay their rates. And some of them, it was just like, okay, some of them were smaller, but they aligned with our values, and just knowing them from like my own social media surfing. Right. So then I started putting those people on the list, and I was like, okay, these are going to be like the 1 million ones. Like, let's put them on hold. We cannot pay their rates right now. We may just send them like a care package and maybe they'll talk about it, but no expectation. And then it's like, okay, so then I'm going through. So the one thing that I did a lot is like, as you search, so let's say Simona, for example, who like we love and adore. So if you click like that little button that expands to like make recommendations, so it'll show you influencers that are similar to a Simona. And then I would like click into there, and then I would dig in and I'd be like, okay, they look like, they talk about beauty. They're like a vegan blogger. They just use vegan cosmetic products, whatever. So then I started putting them on a spreadsheet and then reaching out to them. So I know that there's like tools and all of that stuff out there that you can employ, and just, they're not expensive, that'll help source influencers for you. But for me in the beginning, it was so important for me to even sourcing that first list. So I think you almost have to like write down, these are my values and this is the type of influencer I'm looking for, and then work backwards. Right. So then it takes hours of searching, and I'd find myself like scrolling, like if I'm waiting in a line to pick up, like, pay for my like groceries, I'm like, okay, let me scroll. And then I would save those influencers and then come back and put them on a spreadsheet, or like right before bed, which is, I know they say don't do that, but like, just scrolling and looking for influencers. So I did it very organically. And that's exactly how some of like our top influencers that we work with was me just surfing through and looking for influencers like that, which sort of fit that, those parameters of what we're looking for. So for me, it was like a very organic search. And I think we've used some of these services over the years, but I just feel like that the exactly what you're looking for, like sometimes you just know it too, like from looking at it, and tech can do the same type of thing, especially because it's like your values. So I think doing it yourself initially is a good idea. And then you also have that relationship with them, like you reach out to them. And I would use like my own account a lot of times. I'd be like, hey, started this company. I want to just send you some products just for you to try it. And to be honest, there are some influencers that I sent them lab samples, like, and they've become such amazing champions of Journ. I'm like, please don't put it on camera. It is like literally like heat glue sealed at the top. The tube isn't even the right artwork, but this is from our lab, like, before we even launched, and I'd send products to some influencers to like even test and give feedback. And you'll notice that, the community is great. Like, especially like these influencers, they want you to succeed and they want you to do well, and they'll like support you. Like we've had influencers like didn't charge us to support, and like they randomly supported Journ and championed. I know like we have one influencer work with Camara Unique, and she's a makeup artist. She's a celebrity makeup artist. She's amazing. This woman's like incredible. And she just tried the product. She's like, I love it. I'm going to champion for you. And our first like couple of pieces of like PR that we got, organic PR, was because of her, because she was interviewed. And so, yeah, I think that building relationships is really important. And they're also great to even like give you feedback on like the different products that you may develop in the future, or what are their thoughts about certain things. So yeah, I think doing it organically, trying to look through Instagram, I know there's like TikTok now and all of that, and marking those and reaching out and building those personal relationships is really key. And then those influencers have, they have groups of like influencers that they work with too. Then they'll recommend people like, oh, this person would be great for a partnership. And so that's typically like how I would recommend starting.
You've shared a lot of the hands-on
Yes.
you've taken on yourself. What other parts of your business when you first started off did you bootstrap, which you thought would probably been done better if you use professionals I use loosely, right? Instead of doing it yourself, but you were pretty much surprised at how well bootstrapping and doing it yourself actually turned out.
Yeah. So I think I think at some point, I guess like for me, the test became, right? Like again, going back to legal and like having like a methodical process. If you're going to have to learn something from scratch and then get good at it, and you're going to spend all this time doing that learning, it's better to outsource it. And then you have to almost like always constantly weigh your time in in a task versus like, okay, if I'm going to spend 10 hours learning how to work on Photoshop to create assets, for example, which I am not very tech savvy, as you probably saw earlier. I couldn't figure out how to switch my headphone from my monitor to my screen. But it's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to learn how to, create assets, like digital assets of some sort. And we needed them for like our deck or whatever in the beginning. So it's like, okay, I'm going to outsource that out. And because if I'm going to spend like 50 hours learning something, I can pay someone for 5 hours to do, that's a better use of my time. So I can then move the business forward. So I think for me was always a constant, like, okay, should I sit there and learn something from scratch? Or can I hire someone and do so affordably? And then provide guidance and direction, but let them actually do like the execute on the task. And as founders, like I treat it, it's like your child, right? Like you want to do every little part of everything and make sure it's perfect. But really like the big learning that I've learned is that you have to you have to outsource things which are not going to add a ton of value. And if they're going to impair your ability to move the business forward, or if you're going to spend a ton of time doing something which you shouldn't be working on or could be done more effectively, then just outsource that. So I mean, I think there were things like that, like small things, like, I mean, I'm not good at photography. Like we were at first I was like, I'm going to do all our product shots, and like our brand, our products have ingredients like seaweed and hibiscus, and I'm like finding seaweed, and I literally bought one day, like spent half a day like in New York City, like different parts. I went to Chinatown to buy ingredients, and I went all these other places. And then I came home and set up the stage, and I took the first like photo, and I was like, okay, no, I can't do this. And it's not good. Like I bought equipment, I bought like a seamless, I don't even know what to do with it. But yeah. And then I was like, okay, no. And at that point we're like, okay, no, we have to go and get a team that can shoot our first like set of product photos and all of that. And same now, like right now, it's like, okay, where can we lean on others and their expertise to sort of free me and my co-founder Mir for our time to really drive the business forward and develop new products and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's just like my advice would be always constantly think like, can you outsource something, or if it's taking X amount of time away from doing other things, can you outsource that?
That's actually a really great point, to do what only you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone else can do something better and saves you time, then that's a benefit. We're going to take some of the questions from the chat. This is from Trisha. She's checked out Journ and she loves the mission that your beauty business
Thank you.
Is there any advice you would give for a young entrepreneur? She recently launched her own skincare makeup line in November 2020. And she's been selling her product since July 2019. So she'd like some advice. Someone also in the beauty industry.
I love it. Well, first of all, congratulations. I mean, just launching a brand, so much goes into it. So advice, like I'd love if you can send me a follow-up question on like what type of advice. Are you looking just overall, or is it advice in a specific area? Um, I don't know if you want to send one now, or maybe we take that in a few minutes. It's up
Yeah,
to you.
Trish, go ahead and type that in and we'll come right back to you, okay? Shu is asking, have you ever participated in pitch competitions or pitched to investors to get started?
Yeah, so we have never done any pitch competitions because we were bootstrapped, and we just raised via family and friends. So we didn't do any pitch competitions. However, we frequently, so now we're in the process of fundraising and actually raising a round. So yeah, so we do, we'll have investor meetings. I guess you can call it a pitch, but like, we'd meet with investors and pitch them our idea and show them our deck and walk through the process. But yeah, but we've never actually done like any type of pitch competitions, but I do recommend definitely, like it's also good practice to get your feet wet before you go in front of these like, firms or funds.
So Trisha sent her a question. The advice she's looking for is overall just how to get your place in the beauty industry and marketing strategies as well.
I think the first thing that is most important is you have to, I guess like I do break things down into like, what problem are you solving, right? Like what is your product going to do that will set you apart from the other products in the brand, in the industry? So I think that helps you identify like, why am I different? What problem am I solving that's not being solved? Or how am I solving it differently? Or what's innovative about, whatever sets you apart, I think is really important to have conviction in that. And then cascade, and then being able to say, okay, this is who I am and this is these other players, but this is okay. This is my mission or what I'm looking to do. And then you'll find people that will need that specific, they'll have a need for that product. And I do think that, I think it's like, okay, yeah, it's $1 billion industry and I'm a small fish, but there is room for all of us, and I say that because I use like a foundation from one brand and I use a lipstick from another brand, and I like using a cream from here because it solves this problem. So I do think that it is, having what problem you're solving and being clear in that messaging in everything, right? Like whether you're cascading that over Instagram or the message that you're gonna be cascading to the world through your education on your products. So I do think that is pretty important to have, a clarity on like what sets you apart from everything else, and then really using that, incorporating that those themes into your marketing strategy on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you might be cascading it.
Someone wants to know, how did you find a quality control person for your products? More specifically, cosmetic scientist to test your products. Is that needed in the beginning when creating a product?
So no. So there's testing that's needed. Absolutely. So what we did was we worked with a lab, so contract manufacturers, they're beauty contract manufacturers, and we created a formula from scratch because nothing like this had ever been done before. So they labs have, teams of chemists, and they have project managers. So we definitely leaned on and leveraged the chemists at the lab to create the formulas. And then the lab will do those initial sets of testing, like they do the compatibility, stability, etc., like those testings that you need, like micro, to get the product out there. There isn't much, like I know when it's drugs, like, or anything like a sunscreen or something else, like there is testing that's required for those types of products that are outside of just your basic testing that your lab will do. But most of the initial testing was done at the labs. The only thing I would advise there is that you want to vet the labs because there's tons of them. You want to make sure that their processes and procedures are, give you the comfort that you would need to put a product out in the world. And then we also brought on independent chemists that sort of just walked us through the ingredients and the formulas, et cetera, just to make sure that we were like double confirming or just having more confidence, because Mir and I are not chemists, and we don't know like the nitty gritties of things, even though we've done a lot of like, even just comfort for myself. Like I've put ingredients in different databases to make sure, they're from a clean perspective, they're good, that type of thing. But yeah, so you lean on the contract manufacturers. They will do a lot of the initial testing that's required, but we specifically used independent chemists to help us to sort of like review everything and make sure there was like confidence and making sure everything looks good.
So a question about company logistics. What point would you recommend filing your company as an entity? And is it best to wait until there are consistent sales, or is it important to do that right at the beginning?
Now I'll put my legal hat on and offer a little bit of advice there. So I think once you have an idea, and I think the first step that you take towards that idea, right? So let's just take simple candle business, right? So you're going to start a candle business, and now you're going to start creating a product. I think filing a company is so important. And, a corporation essentially will give you protection, right? So the idea here is like you have a business, and that's going to offer you legal protections, a legal framework that you're going to operate through. So from a liability perspective, I would highly recommend, before you make that first sale, or even, my suggestion would be, you have an idea, you're going to go for it. Even if it's going to be your side hustle, whatever the case might be, file a company. Like it's easy, it's affordable. Like you can file it yourself in under like $200, depending on what jurisdiction you're filing in. You need some like basic forms to get started that you can now get on Rocket Lawyer, just like the basic corporate governance stuff. So my recommendation would be, like, once you have an idea, you're going to start working on it, file the entity, definitely have one in place before you make your first sale, just from a liability perspective. Make sure you have like your insurances in place, that type of thing. So my suggestion would be, do it early and do it right. Just because you want to sort of go to sleep, having confidence that everything is addressed from that perspective. So yeah, highly recommend filing your business early.
What are the best things to invest in when starting a beauty brand? Photography or ads, or something else?
So yeah, I think the first thing for us, the biggest expense we incurred, obviously aside from like the product itself, was the photography. So we had the photography, like we had created, like once we finally got our product, and believe it or not, like our first set of photos didn't even have like the proper seal on them, because it was like a lab run. So we did definitely invest in a photographer, and like, someone who was going to create all these, because our ingredients, like our products have a lot of ingredients like fruits and botanicals, etc. So yeah, photography was our biggest expense. I remember Mir, my co-founder, created our first website. It was, our payment platform is Shopify. And so we integrated to like our basic website, which was also like a template. And so, yeah, I would say like most of the stuff we did in-house. Photography was our biggest expense, but branding was not, because I think me and my co-founder is like extremely creative and is so great. And most of the packaging, or like, and I'll show some of it later, it was created by him, like on Photoshop, like at 3 o'clock in the morning before he got 2 hours of sleep to go to his like day job. But yeah, so I would say like branding is also really important. Luckily Mir was really good at it, and we had a very clear vision of like what we wanted the products to look like. So I think branding would be also one. And it really does set sort of like the framework of your brand going forward. Like we're going to be going through like somewhat of like a rebranding exercise soon, but having that done early, and I do think that sets a really good base for your brand.
Another question: were you reluctant to share your initial ideas and proposed beauty product solutions, because it could be taken by a bigger player in the industry? And at what point did you get trademark or patent protection?
Okay, so I'll answer two ways. So the first one was, I was reluctant to even, when I came up with the idea, I was reluctant to even share it with people. Like I was like, oh no, this is like my idea. I need to perfect it, and I need to then put it out in the world. So that was like just the initial, like me personally. But the thing about beauty is that it's really hard to trademark. Or trademark is like, you would like trademark like the name of the brand or the word mark, but like to patent formulas, like it's really difficult to do that. Just because it's like, if you wanted to go and patent like a recipe on how to make like a cake, right? So you're like butter, sugar, whatever, like ingredients go on the back of like the formulas. But the beauty is like you may bake cake differently than me, right? So if I bake the cake and use the same exact ingredients, my cake might turn out different than yours. So you can technically go out and patent formulas. And if you do, they're not super protected. So you just, that's why you'll see that somebody else will come out with a similar formula, etc. But I think you just hope that it's because everyone makes things differently. So even if like someone comes up with some similar formula, that it will just be different, and people will buy from you because they believe in your brand, or it resonates more with them.
I would love if you could share some of your products and the why.
Yes.
So give some inspiration to our own entrepreneurs that what's the purpose, right?
I
So
love it. Yeah.
please share.
Okay, so this is exciting. I love doing this part. So Journ was born, as I mentioned, through my journey with cystic acne, and sort of like going through the motions of that. Now, when we were another part about like Mira and I, and we were like, oh, husband and wife co-founded team. So we're like, what do we love, right? So we wanted this brand to be super inspirational, and we wanted it to just be something beyond like what you currently may experience or we've experienced. And so we love to travel and have been blessed to have traveled quite a lot. We've been married like 11 years, and he's probably going to be like, oh my God, you don't remember exactly how long, but yeah, like a long time. And so we have traveled a lot. And so we wanted each product that we create to be inspired by a moment in our lives that was special to us from our travels. And so we have a product called matcha, for example, that was inspired by experiencing a tea ceremony in Tokyo, or like Hawaii, which is inspired by watching the sunset on the beautiful island in Hawaii. So, each of our products drew inspiration from this beautiful moment, but the ingredients that have been formulated into that specific product not only takes you away to that moment, but also helps with the underlying skin issues. So for instance, this is our product Marrakesh. It is a red color corrector that it's like a burnt orange color corrector that actually neutralizes any dark circles, hyperpigmentation, discoloration on medium to deeper skin tones. And it contains ingredients like sweet almond, carrot seed, and rose. All these ingredients are, obviously would take you away to walking down the spice market in Marrakesh, and tells a story about it. But they actually help with those skin issues. Like, for example, sweet almond helps with it's got omega-6 fatty acids that help with your dark circles. And you've got carrot seed, which is rich in beta carotene, that helps with like acne scars and hyperpigmentation. So our ingredients have are going to transport you to that spice market in Morocco, where this product drew inspiration from, but also help with the underlying skin issues. Now, each of our 5 correctors, so we launched the brand with 5 color correctors, 5 different, colors that target a variety of different skin concerns. It will neutralize any area of concern, to obviously give you natural looking skin, so you don't have to use tons and tons of product, but also over time helps with it. So each of those products have 3 ingredients that are like a botanical, a flower, a fruit. And one of those ingredients is a flower. So each of our customer kits ships on a bed of flowers. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what the dried flowers, actually all like tea grade flowers, that we use. We don't recommend turning them into tea, but just because they've been obviously like in the warehouse and thrown around. But each kit ships on a bed of flowers, and it takes you away. We want you to just, every time you use Journ, we want you to stop and pause and take in that moment, and just be present, and I think our lives are so busy, it's so hard to do that. So Journ is all about like taking a moment for yourself and enjoying the experience.
Thank you so much. My tea leaf kit is sitting in a jar in my bathroom. It's my little potpourri in there. So,
I love it.
It's definitely used wisely in my home. I don't have any other questions from our audience. Is there any last advice or anything you'd like to share with our entrepreneurs today that you think would be a great takeaway for them?
I think the one advice that I would give is, having an idea, like all comes down to, if you're thinking about starting a business, I think having like a very clear idea and like what problem that you're looking to solve, I think that's like really important. Having clarity on that gives you like that conviction to then go and be like, okay, this is what sets me apart. I think that sort of, it becomes like the foundation of everything, right? So my takeaway would be like, if you've got an idea, like go for it. And if someone like me was like so, like a lawyer, like so terrified of any type of risk, like always has like plan B, C, D ready to go for it. You know, so can you. And just doing it in a way that you have the right process and systems in place, right? So you want to have a good idea. You want to figure out what sets you apart from the competition. Don't be afraid of the competition. You know, it becomes overwhelming. Like I've never looked at it like I'm a small fish in the pond. I'm like, you know, I'm a small business, but I'm not looking for that $2 billion industry, right? Like I know that my product solves a problem that I had, and for countless people that use our product. And, you know, and that's big enough, right? And we're doing well and we're growing. And so never feel like I never ever, when I was starting Journ, stepped back and said, how am I a small, you know, just one person who's not a celebrity or a big brand or have a ton of funding, create a brand that is going to survive in this industry. It's about, I think it comes down to like, what value are you going to add in someone's life? And if that value resonates, you'll have customers for life, right? So the idea, I would say, is like really figure out like, what is your the problem that you're looking to solve, and how are you going to cascade that to the world, and how are you going to educate the users through your social media, website, wherever the case might be. And yeah, it's fun, exciting. I love it. Like every day I wake up, I always say we put out new fires every day, and I love it. Like it's such an exhilarating experience and such a fun one. And I, you know, hope that you all do the same and can and really be a part of this amazing dynamic ecosystem.
Sara, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. We appreciate your time. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining us today, once again, for another Lunch and Learn. Our next one is May 6th, and we are actually going to be speaking one-on-one with the Small Business Services Commissioner, Janelle Doris, and he's going to be talking to us about how to move the needle on your New York City small business. So look out from an email from me, everyone, for the recording of today's session and more information about the next session. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.